I found Tyler's resignation letter in my old office last week. The paper had yellowed, the ink faded, but the words were still there. The same lies he'd told me 7 years ago, preserved like evidence in a crime scene. I burned it without reading past the first line. Some betrayals don't end when the revenge is over. They live in your bones, rewire your brain, change the fundamental way you see every human interaction. I learned that the hard way. My name is Adrian Hayes, and I destroyed my best friend's life with the same methodical precision I once used to save lives. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent 12 years designing medical devices that kept people's hearts beating, and in the end, I used that same technical mind to stop someone else's entire world from functioning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand what I did, why I did it, you need to know who we were before everything shattered. I met Tyler Grayson during my master's program at Stanford in biomedical engineering. It was 2009, and I was the quiet kid from Sacramento who'd gotten a full ride based on my undergraduate thesis about minimally invasive cardiac monitoring systems. Tyler was my opposite, a business and engineering double major from Connecticut, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and own it within minutes. He had this effortless charisma that made professors remember his name and made other students want to be around him. We were assigned as lab partners for a project on neural interface design, and I remember thinking he'd be dead weight. I was wrong. "You're Adrian, right?" he said that first day, extending his hand with a grin that seemed genuinely friendly. "I saw your presentation last week on the cardiac sensor prototype. That was brilliant work. The way you solved the biocompatibility issue with the polymer coating, I've never seen anyone approach it from that angle." I shook his hand, surprised he'd not only attended a presentation from a different track but had actually understood the technical details. "Thanks, you're in the business program, aren't you?" "Business and engineering," he corrected with a laugh. "I know I'm a glutton for punishment. But look, I'm not going to pretend I'm at your level technically. What I saw in that presentation, that's pure genius. But what you might need is someone who can see the commercial applications, who understands how to bring innovations to market. We could make a hell of a team." He wasn't wrong. Over the next 2 years, we became inseparable. I'd work late nights in the lab, developing prototypes and refining designs, while Tyler would research market demands, patent strategies, and potential investors. We won 3 major competitions together, published 2 papers, and by the time we graduated in 2011, we had a detailed business plan for our own medical device startup. But more than that, Tyler became my best friend. My only real friend, if I'm honest. I'd always been socially awkward, more comfortable with circuit boards and CAD software than with people. Tyler taught me how to navigate the world outside the lab. He'd drag me to networking events, introduce me to influential people, make me practice my pitch until it sounded confident instead of apologetic. When my mum got sick during our second year, Tyler drove me home every weekend for 3 months, waiting in hospital cafeterias while I sat with her, never once complaining or making me feel like a burden. "That's what friends do, man," he said once. When I tried to thank him, "You do the same for me." And I would have done anything for him. After graduation, we moved to San Diego. Tyler had secured initial seed funding from a venture capital firm his father knew, and we rented a small office space in Sorrento Valley. We called our company Cardiotech Innovations. The name was Tyler's idea. He said it sounded established, trustworthy, like we'd been around for decades, rather than being two guys barely out of grad school. Our first product was my baby, a wireless cardiac monitoring patch that could detect arrhythmias and automatically alert emergency services. It was smaller, more accurate, and significantly cheaper than anything else on the market. I spent 18 months perfecting it, running hundreds of tests, refining every component until it was flawless. Tyler handled everything else, the business filings, the regulatory submissions, the investor meetings, the marketing strategy. He was brilliant at it. He could walk into a room full of skeptical investors and walk out with a check. He understood what they wanted to hear, how to frame our technology in terms of market disruption and ROI and scalability. We were 25 years old, running our own medical device company, and we were actually succeeding. By 2013, we had FDA approval, our first hospital contracts, and revenue. That let us hire a small team. We moved into a real office, hired engineers, set up a proper lab. Those were the best years of my life. Tyler and I would work until midnight, order pizza, argue about product roadmaps and expansion strategies. We had this unspoken understanding. I'd push for perfecting the technology, he'd push for growing the business, and somehow we'd find the right balance. We trusted each other completely. "We're going to change healthcare," Tyler would say, and I believed him. 10 years from now, cardiotech is going to be a household name. We're going to save thousands of lives. I believed every word. I met Sophie Chen in the spring of 2014. Wait. Chen, her maiden name was Chen, but she's remarried now. Different name, different life. I need to be more careful. I met Sophie Lin in the spring of 2014 at a medical technology conference in San Francisco. She was a physician, a cardiologist, giving a presentation about patient compliance issues with traditional monitoring systems. I attended because it was directly relevant to our product development, and I remember being struck by how clearly she articulated the problems we were trying to solve. After her talk, I approached her, probably too eagerly, clutching my conference program like a security blanket. "Dr. Lin? Hi, I'm Adrian Hayes. I just wanted to say your presentation was excellent. Everything you said about the patient experience with current monitoring systems, that's exactly what we're trying to address with our wireless patch technology." She smiled at me and I felt something shift in my chest. She had this warmth about her, this genuine kindness in her eyes that made me forget to be nervous. "Adrian Hayes, you're with Cardiotech, right? I've been following your work. The wireless monitoring patch? That could be revolutionary if it's as reliable as your early trials suggest." We talked for an hour, then 2 hours. By the end of the conference, I'd shown her our latest prototypes, and she'd given me feedback that would shape our next 3 product iterations. More importantly, I'd gotten her phone number. Tyler was thrilled when I told him. "This is perfect, man. She's exactly the kind of medical professional we need as an advisor. Get her to consult for us. Her credibility could open so many doors." "It's not like that," I said, feeling defensive. "I mean, yes, she'd be an amazing advisor, but I really like her, Tyler." He grinned, clapping me on the shoulder. "Even better. Adrian Hayes, the hermit engineer, finally meets someone who gets him." "I'm proud of you, brother. When's the first date?" The first date was at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. I was so nervous I could barely eat, but Sophie made it easy. She asked about my work with genuine interest, not just polite small talk. She understood the technical challenges I was facing, could discuss cardiac physiology at a level that made me feel like I'd finally found someone who spoke my language. You light up when you talk about your designs, she said at one point. It's beautiful. You really care about the patients who'll use these devices. Of course I do, I said. That's the whole point. Every design decision, every component choice, every software algorithm, it all comes back to whether it'll help someone live a longer, healthier life. If I lose sight of that, then what's the point of any of this? She reached across the table and took my hand. That's exactly why you'll succeed. Over the next few months, Sophie became the center of my world. She was everything I'd never thought I'd find. Brilliant, compassionate, patient with my social awkwardness, fascinated by my work. She'd visit the office sometimes, and Tyler would joke that she was the best thing that ever happened to me. You're like a different person around her, he said once, after Sophie had left, following a lunch visit. More confident, happier. She's good for you. He was right. Sophie brought out a version of myself I hadn't known existed. With her, I could talk about things beyond work, about dreams, fears, the kind of vulnerable conversations I'd never had with anyone. She told me about losing her father to a heart attack when she was in medical school, about how that had driven her to specialize in cardiology, about her own fears of not being good enough. 6 months into our relationship, I knew I was going to marry her. Tyler knew it too. You're going to ask her, aren't you? He said one evening after we'd both had a few drinks at our favorite bar near the office. Yeah, I admitted. I'm terrified, but yeah, she's the one, Tyler. I've never been more sure of anything. Then do it right, he said, signaling for another round. Sophie's incredible. She deserves something memorable. He helped me plan the proposal. We were closing a major deal with a hospital network in Los Angeles, and Tyler suggested I combine it with a weekend trip, proposed to Sophie on the beach, at sunset, something romantic and special. He even helped me pick out the ring, spending hours with me at jewelry stores, giving his opinion on cuts and settings. This one, he finally said, pointing to a platinum band with a princess-cut diamond. It's elegant, timeless, just like her. I proposed to Sophie in December 2014 on a beach in Malibu, and when she said yes, I felt like my life had finally come together. I had a successful company, a best friend who was more like a brother, and the woman I loved had just agreed to spend her life with me. I remember calling Tyler from the hotel room that night, Sophie asleep beside me, both of us exhausted and happy. She said yes, I told him, my voice breaking with emotion. Of course she did, Tyler said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Congratulations, brother. You deserve this. You deserve all of it. Looking back now, I wonder if he already knew what he was going to do, if the betrayal was already forming in his mind even as he congratulated me, or maybe it came later. Maybe he convinced himself it was justified. I'll never know. All I know is that everything started to change in 2015. The first sign was subtle. So subtle, I didn't even recognize it as a sign. We'd hired a new VP of sales in early 2015, a woman named Rachel Morrison with an impressive resume from one of our competitors. Tyler had been the one to recruit her, and he was convinced she'd help us scale faster. Rachel's connected in ways we're not, he explained during a board meeting. She knows every major hospital administrator on the West Coast. With her on board, we can expand our market share by 40% in the next year. I didn't object. Sales wasn't my domain. I trusted Tyler's judgment on personnel decisions. But I noticed he started spending more time with Rachel, late meetings, dinners with potential clients, weekend strategy sessions. Is everything okay? Sophie asked me one night after Tyler had cancelled our usual Friday night poker game for the third week in a row. Yeah, just busy with the expansion, I said. Rachel's really driving aggressive growth targets. But it bothered me. Not because I suspected anything inappropriate. Tyler had a girlfriend at the time, a lawyer named Jennifer he'd been dating for 2 years. It bothered me because our dynamic was shifting. Tyler and I had always been partners in everything, but now he was making major decisions without consulting me, hiring new staff, restructuring departments, changing our go-to market strategy. It's just business efficiency, he said, when I finally brought it up. Adrian, you're brilliant at the technical side, but you don't want to get bogged down in operational details. And let me handle the business stuff so you can focus on what you do best, innovation. It made sense. It even sounded considerate, like he was trying to protect my time for the work I loved. So I let it go. The second sign came in June. Tyler suggested we bring on an additional investor, a private equity firm that wanted to buy a 30% stake in Cardiotech for $15 million. This is our chance to really scale, Tyler said, pulling up financial projections on his laptop. With this capital, we can expand our product line, enter new markets, maybe even start looking at acquisitions. I reviewed the term sheet. The valuation was good, but the equity stake was significant. We'd be giving up a lot of control, I said. Right now, you and I have majority ownership. This would change that. We'd still have 70% collectively, Tyler pointed out, and the board seats would be structured so we maintain control of strategic decisions. Adrian, this is standard for companies at our stage. If we want to compete with the major players, we need this kind of capital. Sophie wasn't sure. It sounds aggressive, she said when I discussed it with her that night. Are you comfortable giving up that much equity? Tyler knows what he's doing, I said. This is his expertise, and he's right. If we want to grow, we need capital. We signed the deal in July. The $15 million hit our accounts, and suddenly Cardiotech had the resources to expand rapidly. We hired more engineers for my team, opened a second office in Boston, began R&D on 3 new product lines. Tyler was in his element. He traveled constantly, New York, Boston, Chicago, meeting with hospital systems and investors and potential partners. I stayed in San Diego, managing the technical teams, pushing forward on product development. You're the heart of this company, Tyler told me during one of his brief stops at the main office. I'm out there selling the vision, but you're the one making it real. Don't ever forget that. I didn't forget, but I started to feel disconnected, like Cardiotech was becoming something I didn't fully understand anymore. The company I'd built with Tyler in a tiny office was now a 60-person operation with complex hierarchies and processes that felt foreign to me. Maybe you should travel with Tyler sometimes, Sophie suggested. Be more involved in the business side. You founded this company. You should understand all aspects of it. She was right, but I resisted. That's not where I add value, I said. Tyler handles that stuff better than I ever could. I need to focus on the products. The third sign came in October, and this one I couldn't ignore. I was working late on a Friday night, troubleshooting a calibration issue with our next-generation monitoring system. The office was empty. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I needed to access some financial records to check budget allocation, for the R&D department, so I logged into our shared company server. That's when I saw it. A folder labelled Grayson Private in the directory structure. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that even as I clicked. It was Tyler's private folder, probably just personal files he kept on the company server for convenience, but something made me look. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, call it the universe trying to warn me. Inside were emails, hundreds of them. Correspondence between Tyler and the private equity firm we'd partnered with. I started reading, my stomach slowly knotting. The emails went back months before the deal had been finalized, before Tyler had even mentioned the partnership to me. In them, Tyler was discussing company valuation, ownership structures, dilution scenarios. He was negotiating terms that would minimize my stake while maximizing his own. He'd structured the deal so that the new equity came primarily from my shares, not his. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing. Tyler had diluted my ownership without telling me. The deal we'd signed, the one he'd presented as equal partnership, had been designed to shift the power balance in his favor. When we'd started Cardiotech, we each owned 50%. After this deal, Tyler owned 42%, and I owned 28%. The math hadn't registered when I'd signed the papers because Tyler had handled all the details and I'd trusted him. I'd trusted him completely. There was more. Emails discussing transition plans and founder role optimization. Tyler was talking with the investors about eventually moving me into a chief technology officer role while he became sole CEO, making me an employee rather than a partner. My hands were shaking. I printed everything, created a backup on a USB drive. Then I closed the folder and sat in the dark office, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. Confront him? He was my best friend. There had to be an explanation. Maybe I was misunderstanding the business context. Maybe this was standard practice, and I was too naive to recognize it. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew, deep down, I knew Tyler was cutting me out of my own company. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Sophie, who was peacefully asleep, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. My mind kept replaying every interaction with Tyler over the past year, recontextualizing everything through this new lens of betrayal, the restructuring, the new hires, the travel. All of it had been methodical preparation for something I hadn't seen coming. When Sophie woke up, she immediately knew something was wrong. "Adrian, what happened?" I told her everything, showed her the printed emails, watched her face shift from confusion to anger to something that looked like grief. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Tyler did this? Tyler?" "I don't know what to do," I said, and I hated how broken I sounded. "He's my best friend. We built this together. Maybe there's an explanation." "There's no explanation that makes this okay," Sophie said firmly. She was in full doctor mode now, analytical, clear-headed, focused on solving the problem. "These emails are clear, Adrian. He's been planning to push you out for months. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was calculated." "But why?" My voice cracked. "We're partners. Brothers. If he wanted to restructure ownership, he could have just talked to me. We could have figured it out together." Sophie pulled me close. "I don't know why, but you need to protect yourself. You need to talk to a lawyer before you confront him. Understand your legal options." I met with an attorney that Monday, a shark named Patricia Brennan, who specialized in corporate disputes. I showed her everything. She read through the emails with an expression that grew increasingly grim. Finally, she looked up at me. Mr. Hayes, I'm going to be direct. Your partner has been committing what amounts to corporate fraud. The way this equity deal was structured, the misrepresentations about ownership dilution, the undisclosed communications with investors, you have grounds for legal action. I don't want to sue him, I said immediately. I just want to understand what's happening and figure out if we can fix this. Patricia gave me a look that suggested she'd heard this before from people who were about to get destroyed in business. Mr. Hayes, Adrian, here's what I see. Your partner has been systematically increasing his control while decreasing yours. He's been having conversations with your investors about your future role in the company you founded, and he's been doing all of this behind your back. This isn't going to get fixed with a conversation. This is a hostile takeover by your co-founder. The words hit me like a physical blow. Hostile takeover. Tyler was taking over Cardiotech, taking it away from me. What are my options? I asked. You can file suit immediately for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and misrepresentation. Force him out before he does the same to you, or... She paused. Or you can confront him, see if he is willing to negotiate a settlement. But I strongly advise the former. Men who do what Tyler's done don't suddenly develop a conscience when confronted. I left her office feeling nauseous. The world I'd understood had completely inverted. Tyler wasn't my friend. Maybe he never had been. Maybe I'd been too naive, too trusting, too focused on the work to see what was happening right in front of me. That night, I decided to confront him, not because I thought Patricia was wrong, but because I needed to hear it from Tyler's own mouth. I needed to understand why. I asked Tyler to meet me at the office on Wednesday evening, after everyone else had gone home. Just like old times, the two of us talking through problems. He arrived at 7, carrying 2 coffees from our favorite shop, grinning like nothing was wrong. Hey brother, what's up? Your message sounded serious. Everything okay with the new prototype? I looked at him, really looked at him. Same Tyler I'd known for 6 years. Same easy smile, same confident posture. And I realized I had no idea who he actually was. I found your private folder on the server, I said quietly. I read the emails. The change was instantaneous. His smile didn't disappear. It froze, became something plastic and false. Adrian, I can explain. Explain what? My voice was shaking now. Explain how you diluted my ownership without telling me. How you've been planning with the investors to push me out. How you've been lying to my face for months. He set down the coffees carefully. When he spoke, his voice had shifted to, all the warmth gone, replaced by something calculated and cold. Okay, you want the truth? Here it is. Cardiotech has outgrown the 2-founder model. We need professional leadership to scale, and that means making hard decisions about roles and equity distribution. Professional leadership? Tyler, we founded this company together. We're equal partners. We're equal partners, he corrected. Adrian, you're an incredible engineer, probably the best I've ever worked with. But you're not a businessman. You don't understand market dynamics. You're uncomfortable with investors. You resist necessary changes. The company needs someone who can make tough calls without getting sentimental. I felt like I'd been punched. Sentimental? We built this together. I trusted you with everything. And that's the problem. He was getting agitated now, the mask slipping further. You trusted me. You let me handle everything because you didn't want to deal with the business side. Well, I dealt with it.
I built relationships, I closed deals, I made this company viable. You sat in the lab and tinkered with prototypes while I did the real work. The real work? Tyler, I designed every product we sell, every innovation, every patent, every piece of technology that makes cardiotech valuable. That's my work. Your work? He laughed, and it was genuinely cruel. Adrian, you work for me. You've been working for me since the day we incorporated. I own the business relationships. I control the investor. Connections. I have the board's confidence. You're a very talented employee, and I value that, but you need to understand your place in the hierarchy. The room was spinning. This couldn't be Tyler. This couldn't be the man who'd driven me to the hospital to see my dying mother, who'd helped me plan my proposal, who'd called me brother. Who are you? I whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. For just a second, I saw what might have been guilt, but it was gone immediately, replaced by that cold, businesslike expression. I'm the CEO of a successful medical device company, and you need to decide if you want to be part of our future or if you want to make this difficult. Make this difficult? You committed fraud, Tyler. I've already talked to a lawyer. Those emails, the way you structured the equity deal, it's illegal. Now I saw genuine surprise. You went to a lawyer? What did you expect? That I'd just roll over and let you steal my company? Your company? He shook
his head. See, that's the problem. You still think this is your company. Adrian, I've been running cardiotech for 2 years while you played in the lab. The investors know it, the board knows it. The only person who doesn't seem to know it is you. I have rights, legal protections. You have a minority stake and no board support, Tyler interrupted. You can sue if you want, tie this up in litigation for years, destroy the company's valuation, waste millions in legal fees, or you can accept a generous severance package, transition to a consulting role, and we all move forward. Severance package, or you want to pay me to leave the company I founded? I want to avoid a messy legal battle that hurts everyone. Think about Sophie, about your future. You're getting married soon. Do you really want to spend the next 3 years in depositions and court hearings? The mention of Sophie made my blood run cold. Was that a threat? Don't bring Sophie into this. I'm not threatening.
Anyone, Adrian? I'm just being practical. You're a smart guy. Do the math. Figure out what's in your best interest. He stood up, straightening his jacket. The meeting was over in his mind. I'll have our lawyers draw up a severance proposal. Take a few days to think about it. Talk to Sophie. Be reasonable. He walked toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I am sorry it came to this. But business is business, nothing personal. Then he was gone, and I was alone in the office where we'd spent countless nights building our dream together. I sat there for hours, my mind completely blank, numb. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But it was. Tyler had shown me exactly who he was, and I'd been too blind to see it until now. I told Sophie everything that night, every word of the confrontation. She held me while I fell apart, while years of friendship and trust dissolved into something bitter and poisonous. We're going to fight this, she said firmly. You're not giving up your company without a fight. He's right about the legal battle, I said, my voice hollow. It'll take years, cost everything. And he has the investors on his side. You have the truth on your side, and you have me. We'll figure this out together. But over the next few days, I started to realize just how thoroughly Tyler had prepared for this. He'd been building his position for over a year, making himself indispensable to the investors, restructuring the board, creating dependencies that made him irreplaceable. Patricia confirmed it. "He's very good at this," she said grimly. "He's covered most of his tracks. We can prove fraud in the equity deal, but pursuing it means litigation that could bankrupt the company. The investors won't support you. They've already bought into Tyler's vision of the future." "So what do I do?" "You negotiate the best exit package you can, get your name on the patents at least, retain some equity, maybe a board observer seat, then
You walk away and start over. Start over. At 30 years old, I'd have to abandon the company I'd built, the technology I'd developed, the vision I'd dedicated my life to, because my best friend had decided I was no longer necessary. The next week was a nightmare of negotiations. Tyler's lawyers presented a severance package, $2 million, a 5% equity stake with no voting rights, and a complete non-compete for 5 years in the medical device industry. In exchange, I'd resign from all positions, sign an NDA, and release all legal claims. "It's insulting," Patricia said. "Your contribution to this company is worth 10 times that." "But fighting would destroy the company," I countered. "Everything we built would be wasted." "Everything you built is already being taken from you, Adrian. At least if you fight for something real." I went home to think about it. Sophie was waiting for me, and I could see the stress wearing on her too. This wasn't just affecting me anymore. It was affecting us, our engagement, our future, our life together. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to burn it all down, make him pay for what he did, but part of me just wants this to be over." "Then let it be over," she said softly. "Take the severance. We'll plan the wedding. You'll start a new company, design new products. You're brilliant, Adrian. Tyler might have stolen cardio tech, but he can't steal your talent." She was right. Or I wanted her to be right. So I made the decision. I accepted the severance package, signed the papers, walked away from Cardio Tech Innovations. Tyler sent a single text message after it was finalized. "I know this is hard, but you'll thank me eventually. You're free to do what you do best now without all the business headaches. Good luck." I blocked his number. For a few weeks, I tried to move forward. Sophie and I focused on wedding planning. We'd set a date for June 2016. I started sketching ideas for a new company, new products I could develop without violating the non-compete. Sophie was supportive, optimistic, convinced that this setback was just a temporary obstacle. "You're going to do amazing things," she kept saying. "This is just the beginning of something better." I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. Then in December 2015, everything got infinitely worse. I'd been invited to a medical technology conference in Los Angeles, the same conference where I'd met Sophie 18 months earlier. I almost didn't go. The thought of facing the industry after what had happened with Tyler felt humiliating. But Sophie encouraged me. "You need to keep your name out there," she said. "Let people see that you're moving forward, that you're not defined by what Tyler did." So I went. It was a 3-day conference, and I'd planned to attend some panels, network a bit, then head home. On the second evening, there was a reception for speakers and sponsors. I was nursing a drink in the corner, trying to look approachable, but mostly just feeling out of place, when I saw Tyler across the room. He was there representing Cardio Tech, my company, now his company. He was schmoozing with hospital administrators and investors, working the room with that effortless charisma I'd once admired. I should have left, should have walked away. But something made me stay. Then I saw who he was talking to. Sophie. She was laughing at something Tyler had said, touching his arm in that casual way she did when she was being friendly. They were having what looked like an animated, pleasant conversation. I felt sick. I knew I was being paranoid. Sophie was networking, same as everyone else. Tyler was her ex-fiancée's former business partner. Of course, they might talk at an industry event, but watching them together, something felt wrong. I walked over. "Sophie, I didn't know you were coming to this reception." She looked startled to see me.
"Adrian, hey, yes, one of my colleagues invited me last minute. I was going to text you, but the reception started early and—" "Hayes," Tyler interrupted smoothly. "Good to see you here. I was just telling Dr. Lynn about Cardiotech's new product line. She's been giving me some excellent clinical feedback." "I'm sure she has," I said, hearing the edge in my own voice. Sophie picked up on it immediately. "Adrian, let's grab some air. I need to talk to you about something." We stepped out onto the hotel terrace. The Los Angeles skyline glittered in front of us, but I barely saw it. "What's going on?" I asked. "Why were you talking to Tyler?" "He approached me," she said defensively. I couldn't just ignore him. It would have been rude. "Rude? Sophie, he destroyed my life. He stole my company. And you're in there laughing with him?" "I was being professional. Adrian, I know you're hurt, but you can't expect me to be hostile to everyone who's ever wronged you. I work in this, industry. I need to maintain professional relationships." Something about her tone bothered me. Too defensive. Too practiced. "How long have you been talking to him?" "What? Tonight. Don't lie to me," I said, and I saw her flinch. "Please don't lie to me." There was a long pause. The sounds of the reception drifted out through the terrace doors. Laughter, clinking glasses, the hum of successful people networking. "He called me," Sophie finally said, "a few weeks ago, after you left Cardiotech. He wanted to check on you, see how you were doing." "He wanted to check on me." My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "And you didn't think to mention this?" "I knew you'd react badly. You're still so angry about everything, and I didn't want—" "How many times did he call you?" "Adrian, this is crazy. You're being paranoid." "How many times, Sophie?" She looked away. "A few times. We've had lunch. Twice." He wanted to explain his side of what happened. "Help me understand the business perspective." The world tilted. "You've been having lunch with Tyler? Behind my back?" "Not behind your back. I was going to tell you, but you're so volatile about anything related to him, and I thought—" "You thought what? That sneaking around with the man who betrayed me was a good idea?" "It's not sneaking around. We were just talking. As friends. He feels terrible about how things ended." "He feels terrible?" I was shouting now. "Sophie, he committed fraud. He stole my company. He threatened me. And you're buying his bullshit about feeling terrible?" "Maybe you're not seeing the whole picture," she said, and her voice had gone cold. "Maybe there are two sides to this story, and you're too stubborn to consider that." "Two sides? You think there are two sides to fraud?" "I think you were so focused on your engineering work that you let Tyler handle everything else, and now you're angry that he made decisions without you. But that's not—"
"Fraud, Adrian. That's you not paying attention to your own business." I stared at her. This woman I'd planned to marry. and didn't recognize her. "He got to you," I said softly. "Whatever he told you in those lunches, he got to you." "Nobody got to me. I'm capable of forming my own opinions, and honestly, I think you need to take some responsibility for what happened instead of playing the victim." The victim? She thought I was playing the victim. "I need to go," I managed. "Adrian, wait." But I was already walking away back through the reception, ignoring the stares, ignoring Tyler's satisfied smirk as I passed him. Out of the hotel into the cold December night. I drove back to San Diego in a daze, reached our apartment at 3 a.m. Sophie wasn't there, still in LA, presumably. I sat in the dark, trying to process what had just happened. Tyler hadn't just taken my company, he was taking Sophie too. She came home the next afternoon. I was sitting exactly where she'd left me, still in the same clothes, probably looking like I'd lost my mind. "Adrian, we need to talk." "Did you sleep with him?" The question came out flat, emotionless. "What? No, of course not. How could you even—" "But you want to." She didn't answer immediately, and that told me everything. "I don't know what I want," she finally said. "I'm confused. Tyler's he's been there for me through all of this. Through your anger and your obsession with the company, and through all of this. Sophie, all of this started 2 months ago when I discovered my best friend was betraying me. And for 2 months, that's all you've talked about. Tyler this, the company that, your revenge fantasies. Do you realize you haven't asked me about my working weeks? Haven't asked about my day, my patience, anything in my life? You become completely consumed by this. Because I lost everything. You lost a company, one company. You didn't lose your talent, your intelligence, your ability to build something new, but instead of moving forward, you're drowning in bitterness, and I can't drown with you, Adrian, I can't. So you're choosing him. I'm not choosing anyone. I'm trying to figure out what I want from my life, and right now, what I want is space. Time to think without your constant anger filling every room. She went into the bedroom, started packing a bag. Where are you going? To my friend Rachel's place. For a few days, maybe longer. I don't know. Rachel Morrison, Tyler's VP of sales, of course. He planned this, I said. All of it. The company, you, everything. It's all part of the same takeover. Sophie looked at me with something that might have been pity. Not everything is a conspiracy, Adrian. Sometimes people just grow apart, make different choices. It doesn't have to be some grand betrayal. She left. I heard the door close, heard her car pull away. I sat in the empty apartment and finally understood what Tyler had done. He hadn't just stolen my company. He'd systematically destroyed my entire life, isolated me, made me look crazy and obsessive, poisoned my relationship with the woman I loved, and he'd done it all with surgical precision. The next few weeks were dark. Darker than I want to describe, honestly. Sophie stopped answering my calls, stopped responding to texts. I showed up at the hospital where she worked once, and she told me very clearly that I needed to stop contacting her, that she needed space. "Please," I begged. "Sophie, please, don't do this. I love you. We're supposed to get married." "I can't marry you like this," she said gently. "You need help, Adrian. Professional help. You're not okay." Maybe she was right. I wasn't okay. I was barely sleeping, barely eating. My entire existence had narrowed to 2 thoughts that cycled endlessly. I'd lost everything. Tyler had won, I learned later, through mutual acquaintances who probably shouldn't have told me, that Sophie had started openly seeing Tyler in January 2016. They'd gone to dinner, a concert. Apparently, they looked happy together, my best friend and my fiancée. The engagement ring I'd bought, the one Tyler had helped me pick out, was returned to me in a small box with no note. Just the ring, sitting in velvet, a physical representation of how thoroughly my life had collapsed. I thought about killing myself. I'm not ashamed to admit that now. There were nights when it seemed like the only way to make the pain stop, but something kept me from following through. Maybe cowardice, maybe stubbornness, maybe just the last vestiges of who I used to be, refusing to let Tyler have that final victory. Instead, I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ramesh Patel, a psychiatrist who specialized in trauma and depression. He was the first person who seemed to understand what had happened to me, not just the business betrayal, but the complete psychological devastation of losing everything simultaneously. "What you experienced," he said during one of our early sessions, "is a comprehensive betrayal. Your professional identity, your personal relationships, your trust in reality itself, all of it was violated by someone you considered family. The brain doesn't process that kind of betrayal rationally. It processes it as trauma." "So what do?" I asked. "At first you survive, then you rebuild. And eventually, if you choose, you confront the trauma in a way that returns power to you rather than keeping you in a victim state." "Confront how?" "That's for you to decide. Some people confront through forgiveness, others through legal action, some through simply building a life so good that the betrayal becomes irrelevant. There's no right answer." But as the months passed, as I slowly crawled out of the worst of the depression, I realized what my confrontation would look like. I was going to destroy Tyler Grayson, not physically, not violently, but systematically, methodically, using every skill I possessed and every resource I could access. He'd taken everything from me with careful planning and surgical precision. I was going to return the favor. The plan started to form in March 2016. I was still seeing Dr. Patel twice a week, still climbing out of the darkness, but my mind had regained its analytical edge. The same mind that could design complex medical devices could design a complex revenge. First, I needed to understand exactly what Tyler had done. Not just the betrayal I'd discovered, but everything. Every decision, every manipulation, every lie. I needed the complete picture. I started with the emails I'd saved, the ones from his private folder. I analyzed them forensically, tracking communication patterns, identifying key relationships, mapping out his network of influence. Tyler had been careful, but not perfect. He'd left gaps, assumptions he'd made about my passivity that I could exploit. Second, I needed resources. The $2 million severance was substantial, but I couldn't just use it directly. Any obvious financial moves would be traceable. Instead, I created a consulting LLC, started taking on contract work for small medical device startups, built a legitimate income stream while I planned. Third, I needed information. I couldn't actively work in the medical device industry. The non-compete prevented that. But I could consult. I could attend conferences. I could maintain relationships with engineers, physicians, industry insiders, people who knew Tyler, who worked with cardiotech, who might have information I could use. I became a different person, more careful, more strategic, more patient. The old Adrian who'd trusted blindly was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, capable of the same calculated manipulation, Tyler had used against me. Dr. Patel noticed the change. "You seem more focused," he observed during a session in April. "I found purpose," I said. "What kind of purpose?" I considered lying, but Dr. Patel had earned my honesty. "Revenge." He didn't look surprised. "Tell me about it." I explained my plan, at least the outline of it. He listened without judgment. "I'm supposed to tell you that revenge won't heal you," he said finally. "That it will consume you, poison you, make you become what you hate." "That's what the textbooks say." "But," I prompted, "but in your case, I think you need to act. You're not a passive victim. That doesn't match who you are fundamentally. Sitting back and healing through acceptance would feel like another violation. So if you're going to pursue this, pursue it intelligently. Don't let it destroy you in the process." "How do I prevent that?" "Set boundaries, rules you won't cross. Maintain other aspects of your life. Don't become only this. And when it's done, if it's done, you need to be ready to let it go and actually move forward." I thought about his words for days. Then I made my rules. No violence, no collateral damage to innocence, no illegal activity that could put me in prison. Maintain a life outside the revenge plan. When it's done, it's done. With those rules established, I began the real work. The first phase was information gathering. I needed to know everything about Tyler's current position, his vulnerabilities, his dependencies, his secrets. I started with Cardiotech itself. The company was still growing, still successful on the surface. But success creates pressure, and pressure creates cracks. I created a fake LinkedIn profile, a headhunter named David Richardson specializing in medical device executives. I reached out to Cardiotech employees, offering them positions at competing firms. Most declined, but they talked. People always talk to headhunters. From these conversations, I learned that morale at Cardiotech was low. Tyler was a demanding CEO, quick to blame others for failures, slow to credit success. The engineers I'd worked with, people I'd hired and mentored, were frustrated. The company had shifted focus from innovation to profit maximization. Quality was slipping. "We used to make the best devices in the industry," one engineer told me during a phone screen. "Now we're just racing to hit quarterly numbers. Tyler doesn't care about the patients anymore. It's all about impressing the investors." Perfect. Tyler was creating his own vulnerabilities. I also learned about his relationship with Sophie. They were serious, living together, attending events as a couple. My Sophie, who'd once told me she couldn't marry me because I'd become too obsessed with Tyler, was now completely enmeshed in his life. The irony was almost funny. Almost. Through my consulting work, I deliberately started building relationships with Cardiotech's competitors, small gestures, solving a technical problem here, introducing key contacts there. Building goodwill that I might need later, I also started documenting everything Tyler had done. Not just the fraud I already knew about, but new discoveries. Through my network, I learned that Tyler had been misrepresenting Cardiotech's clinical trial results to investors, exaggerating efficacy rates, downplaying adverse events, not massively, just enough to keep the valuation high and the funding flowing. It was fraud, clear, prosecutable fraud, but I didn't go to the authorities, not yet. That card needed to be played at exactly the right moment. In August 2016, I learned something that changed everything. One of my consulting clients was developing a competing cardiac monitoring system, more advanced than anything Cardiotech had. They were hitting technical challenges I could solve, so they'd hired me to consult. During one of our meetings, the CEO mentioned they were considering a partnership with Cardiotech. We've been in talks with Tyler Grayson. He's interested in acquiring our technology as part of their product portfolio. My blood went cold. Acquisition? Yeah. They'd buy us outright, integrate our tech, we'd become a subsidiary. Tyler seems very motivated to make it happen. I asked careful questions. Learned that Tyler was offering $40 million for this startup, a significant overpayment based on their current stage. He was desperate to acquire this technology. Why? I dug deeper, cross-referenced with what I knew about Cardiotech's product pipeline. And then I understood. Cardiotech's flagship product, the wireless monitoring patch I'd designed, was failing. Not catastrophically, but slowly, insidiously. The long-term reliability wasn't there. Devices were malfunctioning after extended use. Nothing that had caused serious patient harm yet, but enough that hospital systems were starting to complain. Tyler needed new technology to replace it before the failures became public, before it destroyed Cardiotech's reputation and valuation. He was trying to fix the problem I'd created because here's what Tyler had never understood. I'd designed that monitoring patch with a specific hardware architecture that required constant calibration and maintenance. I'd warned him about it during development, told him we needed to invest in better components, spend more on quality control. But Tyler had overruled me. We need to hit the price point, he'd said. We can't afford premium components and meet our margin targets. So I'd built it with the cheaper components, knowing that long-term reliability would be an issue. At the time, I'd assumed we'd iterate, improve the design in version 2.0, but then Tyler had pushed me out, and there was no version 2.0, no iteration, just the flawed design now failing in the field, threatening to destroy everything he'd stolen from me. The irony was beautiful. Tyler had thought he could run Cardiotech without me, thought he could maintain the technology without the person who'd actually built it. But the truth was catching up with him, and I was going to make sure it caught up fast. I contacted the CEO of the startup, a woman named Jennifer Cho, who I'd genuinely grown to respect during our consulting work. Jennifer, I need to tell you something about Tyler Grayson and Cardiotech. Is this a conflict of interest thing? Because I know you used to work there. It's not a conflict of interest, it's fraud. I showed her everything. The clinical trial misrepresentations, the failing devices in the field, the internal communications I'd accessed through my network that showed Cardiotech knew about the reliability issues and was hiding them. Jesus, she whispered, reading through the documentation. If we acquired this company, we'd be inheriting all of this liability. Exactly. Tyler's not trying to acquire your technology to expand. He's trying to use it to cover up Cardiotech's failures. He'll integrate your device, phase out the failing ones, and hope nobody notices the switch. Why are you telling me this? Telling me because I respect what you're building, and because Tyler Grayson destroyed my life. I won't let him destroy yours too. Jennifer pulled out of the acquisition talks immediately. More than that, she started talking to other companies in the industry, warning them about Cardiotech's practices. Within a month, Tyler's acquisition strategy was dead. No company would touch Cardiotech with a 10-foot pole, and the failures in the field were accelerating. More devices malfunctioning, more hospitals complaining. It was only a matter of time before it became public. In October 2016, I made my next move. I'd maintained contact with several engineers still working at Cardiotech, people who trusted me, who remembered when the company had been about innovation rather than profit. Through them, I learned that Tyler was desperate. The board was pressuring him about the device failures. The investors were nervous. One of the engineers, a guy named Marcus Chen, who'd been one of my first
hires, reached out to me directly. Wait, Marcus Chen, I can't use that name. Let me fix it. One of the engineers, a guy named David Park, who'd been one of my first hires, reached out to me directly. Adrian, I need your help. The devices are failing faster than we can handle. Tyler's panicking, making reckless decisions. He's ordered us to modify the firmware to mask some of the failure indicators, and I think it's crossing a line into actual patient safety issues. Modifying the firmware how? He wants us to suppress certain error codes, make it look like the devices are functioning normally when they're actually degrading. It would buy us time, but if a device failed catastrophically while showing green indicators, people could die. Yeah, this was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. Tyler wasn't just committing financial fraud anymore. He was risking patient safety. David, you need to document everything. Every email, every order, every modification. Can you do that? Already started, but Adrian, if this comes out, the company goes down. All of us lose our jobs. I know, but if someone dies because Tyler was more worried about stock price than patient safety, that's worse. You know it is. He was quiet for a long moment. What should I do? Send me everything you have. I'll make sure it gets to the right people. Over the next 2 weeks, David sent me a comprehensive file. Emails from Tyler ordering firmware modifications. Internal memos showing that the engineering team had objected. Financial records proving that Tyler had known about the failures and actively concealed them from the board. It was devastating, complete, indefensible. I spent a week verifying everything, cross-checking dates and facts, making sure the documentation was airtight. Then I made 3 phone calls. The first was to the FDA. I submitted an anonymous safety report detailing the device failures and the firmware modifications, including all supporting
documentation. The second was to the SEC. I filed a whistleblower complaint about the fraudulent clinical trial representations and the concealment of material information from investors. The third was to the Attorney General's office in California. I provided evidence of corporate fraud, including the original emails about my equity dilution. Then I waited. The FDA audit hit Cardiotech in November 2016. It was comprehensive, brutal, and very public. They suspended sales of the monitoring patch pending investigation, demanded full disclosure of all device failures, launched a review of every clinical trial Cardiotech had ever conducted. The stock price Cardiotech had gone public 6 months earlier collapsed by 60% in a single day. Tyler tried to spin it, issued press releases about commitment to safety, about cooperating fully with regulators, about confidence in their technology, but the damage was done. The SEC investigation became public in December. Investors started demanding answers. Board meetings became war zones. Tyler was fighting for his survival. And then Sophie left him. I learned about it through mutual acquaintances. Apparently, she'd had no idea about the fraud, the safety issues, any of it. When it all came out, when she realized what Tyler had been doing, she was horrified. She moved out of their shared condo, put the relationship on indefinite hold, which was a polite way of saying it was over. Part of me felt vindicated. Sophie had chosen Tyler over me, and now she was facing the same betrayal I had. Justice of a sort. But mostly I just felt empty. Revenge was supposed to feel better than this. Dr. Patel, during one of our sessions, asked how I was handling everything. I thought I'd feel triumphant, I admitted. But I just feel tired. That's normal. Revenge is cathartic in theory, hollow in practice. You've destroyed the man who destroyed you, but it doesn't return what you lost. So it was pointless? Not pointless. You held someone accountable for real harm. The FDA investigation might save lives. The SEC action will protect investors. You didn't just hurt Tyler, you exposed genuine wrongdoing. But if you were hoping it would heal the wound he created, then yes, you're going to be disappointed. He was right. I'd won, but I didn't feel like a winner. In January 2017, the Cardiotech board forced Tyler to resign as CEO. He fought it, tried to rally support, but the votes weren't there. The fraud was too extensive, the liability too severe. He released a statement. I'm stepping down to allow new leadership to guide Cardiotech through this challenging period. I remain committed to the company's mission and confident in its future success. Corporates speak for, I'm being pushed out before I'm criminally prosecuted. The company appointed an interim CEO, someone from the board, a professional troubleshooter brought in to manage the crisis. One of his first acts was to reach out to me. Mr. Hayes, my name is Robert Sanders. I'm the new CEO of Cardiotech. I'd like to meet with you if you're willing. We met at a neutral location, a coffee shop in La Jolla. Sanders was in his 60s, a veteran of medical device companies, someone who'd seen every kind of corporate disaster. I've reviewed the company's history, he said after we'd ordered. I know what Tyler Grayson did to you, the equity fraud, the manipulation. On behalf of the board, I want to apologize for not catching it sooner, for not protecting the company's founders, for allowing someone to abuse the trust you'd placed in the organization. He slid a folder across the table. This is a proposed settlement. We'd like to restore your equity to 40%, give you a board seat with full voting rights, and bring you back as Chief Innovation Officer. I opened the folder. The numbers were staggering. Not just equity, but back pay, compensation for the damages I'd suffered, a formal apology from the company. Why? I asked. Because it's the right thing to do, and because, frankly, we need you. Cardiotech's technology is failing. We need someone who understands the engineering, who can rebuild what's been damaged. You're that person. I thought about it. This was everything I'd lost being handed back to me, my company, my position, my life's work. But it felt wrong. Cardiotech wasn't mine anymore. It was Tyler's creation, a hollow shell that prioritized profit over patience, image over innovation. Even with Tyler gone, his DNA was in every decision, every process, every aspect of the culture. I appreciate the offer, I said slowly, but I'm not interested in returning to Cardiotech. Sanders looked surprised. May I ask why? Because Cardiotech represents everything I've come to hate about this industry. It's a company that chose shortcuts over quality, marketing over truth, financial engineering over actual engineering. Tyler built that culture, but he didn't build it alone. Your board supported him. Your investors celebrated him. Bringing me back doesn't change what Cardiotech has become. Then what do you want? I want to build something better, something that can't be corrupted by the next Tyler Grayson. And I want Cardiotech to make things right with the patients you've harmed. We're working on a recall and replacement program. I mean really right. Full disclosure, compensation for anyone who suffered because of the defective devices, a complete overhaul of your quality control processes. If you want my help, that's the price. Not equity, not a title, just Cardiotech being the company I thought we were building when Tyler and I started it. Sanders studied me for a long moment. You're a better man than most would be in your position? I'm not sure about that, but I'm trying to be. We worked out a different arrangement. I became an external consultant to Cardiotech, helping them redesign their flagship product, improve their quality systems, restore their relationship with the FDA. I didn't rejoin the company, didn't take equity, didn't want any ongoing connection. I just wanted to fix what Tyler had broken. The legal consequences for Tyler took longer to materialize. The SEC investigation dragged on through 2017. Criminal charges were filed in 2018. Securities fraud, making false statements to investors, conspiracy to defraud. His trial was scheduled for early 2019. I was called as a witness, but I declined to testify. I'd given the prosecutors all my evidence, but I didn't want to face Tyler in court, didn't want to give him that satisfaction. The prosecution didn't need me anyway. The case was overwhelming. Tyler's own emails condemned him. The engineers who documented his orders to conceal device failures testified. The investors who'd been defrauded testified. He was convicted on 14 counts, sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. When I heard the verdict, I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a weary sense of closure. Dr. Patel asked me, during what turned out to be one of our final sessions, what I'd learned from all of this. That revenge doesn't heal wounds, I said. It just confirms they existed. Is that all? I thought about it. No, I learned that trust is a choice, not a default. That I can be hurt and not become bitter. That I can be betrayed and not lose my humanity. That's significant growth, Adrian. Maybe, but some days it doesn't feel like growth. It just feels like scar tissue. Scar tissue is stronger than original tissue, he pointed out. That's not metaphor, that's physiology. I laughed. Leave it to a psychiatrist to make scars sound positive. I'm not saying what happened to you was positive. It was devastating, but you survived it. More than that, you held yourself to moral standards even when pursuing revenge. You drew lines you wouldn't cross. That takes strength. Or
Stubbornness. Sometimes they're the same thing. I started a new company in 2018. Not a medical device startup this time. I'd had enough of that world. Instead, I founded a non-profit focused on medical device safety advocacy. We work with engineers, physicians, and patients to identify and report dangerous devices before they cause widespread harm. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make millions, but it matters. Sophie reached out to me once in 2019. A simple text. I saw the news about Tyler's conviction. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're doing well. I didn't respond. Not out of anger. I wasn't angry anymore, but because there was nothing left to say. She'd made her choices. I'd made mine. We were different people now, living different lives, and that was okay. Sometimes I wonder if Tyler thinks about me, if he sits in his prison cell and replays the decisions that led him there, if he regrets the betrayal, if he understands that his worst enemy wasn't me. It was his own hubris, or maybe he still thinks he was justified, that he was just making smart business decisions and got unlucky with how things played out. I'll never know. I blocked his number years ago and I have no intention of ever speaking to him again. It's 2026 now. Tyler was released from prison last year, 6 months early for good behavior. I know because someone who still follows industry gossip told me. Apparently, he's working as a consultant for small medical device startups, helping them navigate regulatory processes, build investor relationships, trading on his expertise while carefully avoiding any mention of his criminal conviction. Some people never change. But I've changed. I'm not the naive engineer who trusted blindly anymore. I'm not the broken man consumed by revenge either. I'm someone different. Someone harder in some ways, softer in others. Someone who knows that betrayal is survivable, that justice exists but rarely satisfies, that the only real
Victory is refusing to let the betrayers define who you become. Last week, they found Tyler's old resignation letter in my former office. The building was being demolished. Cardiotech had relocated years ago, and the old space was being torn down for redevelopment. A former colleague thought I'd want it, some kind of memento or closure. I burned it without reading past the first line. Some stories don't need endings, they just need to be over. I still design medical devices sometimes. Consulting work, helping young engineers avoid the mistakes I made, both the technical mistakes and the human ones. Trust your instincts, I tell them. Document everything. Verify what people tell you. And never ever let someone convince you that business considerations justify compromising patient safety. They listen, these young engineers. They see me as successful, wise, someone who survived the worst the industry can throw at you. They don't see the scars, the nights I still wake up.
Angry. The relationships I struggle to trust. The part of me that died when Tyler destroyed everything I'd built. But that's okay. Scars are private. They're proof of survival, not weakness. Dr. Patel told me once that healing isn't about returning to who you were before the trauma. It's about integrating the trauma into a new version of yourself, stronger, more careful, more aware of both human darkness and human resilience. I think I've done that most days anyway. There's an epilogue to this story. Not a happy one, but a real one. In 2024, I was contacted by a journalist writing a book about corporate fraud in the medical device industry. She'd heard about what happened with Cardiotech and wanted my perspective. People need to understand how this kind of betrayal happens, she said. Not just the business fraud, but the personal dimension. How someone can systematically destroy a friend's life for profit. I agreed to talk to her. Not because I wanted attention or
sympathy, but because maybe my story could help someone else recognize the warning signs. See the betrayal before it's too late. During one of our interviews, she asked me a question I'd never really considered. Do you think Tyler ever truly cared about you? Was the friendship real at any point, or was it always manipulation? I thought about it for a long time. I think it was real, I finally said. At least for him in the beginning. I think he genuinely valued our partnership, enjoyed our friendship, but somewhere along the way, ambition became more important than integrity. Success became more important than loyalty. And once he started down that path, once he convinced himself that the ends justified the means, I stopped being a friend and became an obstacle. Do you think that could happen to anyone, that anyone could become what Tyler became? I think we all have the capacity for rationalization, for telling ourselves stories that justify our worst behaviors. Tyler's just someone who was really, really good at it. The book was published last year. It sold modestly well, mostly to people in the medical device industry who knew the story already, but I've gotten emails from people who read it, engineers who saw themselves in my story, who recognized similar warning signs in their own partnerships, who took action before it was too late. Maybe that's the real ending. Not Tyler's conviction or my revenge or even my recovery, just the hope that someone else might avoid the same fate. I met someone last year. Her name is Rachel, different Rachel, not Tyler's VP of sales. She's a patent attorney, sharp and funny, and completely outside the medical device world. We met at a friend's wedding, started talking about intellectual property law, and somehow ended up discussing philosophy and art and life. She knows about Tyler, about Sophie, about everything. I told her on our third date, because I've learned that secrets are poison in relationships.
That's a lot of trauma, she said, not flinching. Are you okay now? Most days, I said, honestly. Some days I'm angry, some days I'm sad. But I'm healing, slowly. Good. Because I'd like to keep seeing you, but only if you're actually available. Not physically available, emotionally available. I won't compete with your past. You won't have to, I promised. And I've kept that promise. Rachel isn't Sophie. She's her own person, fiercely independent, skeptical of bullshit, unwilling to tolerate anything less than complete honesty. She's good for me in ways I didn't know I needed. We're taking it slow. No engagement ring yet, though I've thought about it. But this time, I'm not rushing. I'm being careful, methodical, making sure I'm choosing someone for the right reasons. Tyler taught me that not everyone deserves trust. Rachel is teaching me that some people do. The nonprofit is growing. We've helped identify and report 17 dangerous medical devices in the
past 3 years, saved lives, prevented injuries, forced recalls of products that should never have made it to market. It's the work I should have been doing all along, not chasing profit or prestige or validation, just making sure that the devices people trust with their lives actually deserve that trust. Sometimes I wonder if this is what I was supposed to learn from Tyler's betrayal. That success isn't about building empires or impressing investors. It's about integrity, about doing work that matters, even when it's thankless, about being someone you can respect when you look in the mirror. Tyler built an empire and lost his soul. I lost an empire and found mine. I know which trade I'd make again. Last month I was invited to speak at Stanford, the same engineering program where Tyler and I met. The topic was professional ethics in medical device development. I almost declined. The thought of returning to that campus, those labs, those memories, it felt like too much. But Rachel convinced me. "You have something important to say," she told me, "and those students need to hear it from someone who's lived it." So I went. I stood in a lecture hall that looked exactly like the one where Tyler and I had first partnered. Looked out at eager faces, young engineers who reminded me of who I'd been at 23. And I told them the truth. "You're going to meet people who seem brilliant, charismatic, trustworthy," I said. "People who make you feel like together you can change the world, and maybe you can, but brilliance without ethics is dangerous. Charisma without integrity is manipulation. Trust without verification is naivety." I'm not telling you to be cynical. Cynicism is just another form of blindness. I'm telling you to be wise, to document your agreements, to verify your partner's actions against their words, to draw hard lines about what you will and won't compromise. Because the people who betray you rarely start as villains. They
start as friends. And by the time you realize what's happening, they've already taken everything. The students listened in silence. Afterwards, several came up to talk to me, share their own stories of partnerships gone wrong, of warning signs they'd ignored, of lessons learned the hard way. One student, a young woman with fierce intelligence in her eyes, asked me the question I'd been dreading. Do you regret it? All of it? Meeting Tyler, building the company, everything that happened? I thought about my answer carefully. I regret the betrayal, I said. I regret not seeing it sooner. But I don't regret the friendship we had. Even if it was flawed, I don't regret building cardiotech, even though it was stolen from me. Because those experiences made me who I am. They taught me what matters. And while the lessons were brutal, they were also necessary. So you do it again? I do it differently, but yes, I take the risk of trust again. Because the alternative, living in fear, never collaborating, never opening yourself to connection, that's not living, that's just existing. She nodded slowly. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for asking hard questions. Tyler tried to contact me once, about 6 months ago. A letter delivered to my office. The return address was from somewhere in Arizona, where apparently he'd relocated after his release from prison. I held the envelope for a long time, debating whether to open it. Rachel found me sitting there, staring at it. Is that from him? Yeah. Are you going to read it? I don't know. Part of me wants to know what he'd say after all these years. If he'd apologize, explain, try to justify himself. And the other part? The other part knows that nothing he says will change what happened. Won't return the years he stole. Won't heal the damage he caused. So what are you going to do? I looked at the envelope one last time. Tyler's handwriting on the address. Neat, controlled. The same handwriting I'd seen on 1,000 documents during our partnership. Then I threw it away unopened. I'm going to move forward, I said. Without him. Without his explanations or his excuses or his attempt at redemption. I'm done giving Tyler grace and space in my life. Rachel kissed me. Good choice. That's where the story ends mostly, or where it continues depending on how you look at it. Tyler's out there somewhere, living whatever life he's managed to build from the ruins of his reputation. Sophie's remarried, I heard it through mutual acquaintances, to someone completely outside the medical field. Cardiotech still exists, though it's been acquired and rebranded, and is barely recognizable as the company we founded. And me? I'm building a life that has nothing to do with revenge or anger or obsession with the past. I'm doing work that matters. I'm with someone who sees me clearly and loves me anyway. I'm healing. Some people would say I won, that Tyler's in prison, his career destroyed, his life in shambles, while I've rebuilt successfully. But it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like survival. Like I managed to make it through a fire that should have destroyed me, and now I'm learning to live with the burns. Dr. Patel told me during our last session before he retired that true healing comes when you can tell your story without it controlling you. When you can look at your worst experiences as data points in your history rather than defining moments of your identity. Are you there yet? He asked. Getting closer, I said. Some days I'm the betrayed engineer, some days I'm the revenge seeker, but more and more I'm just Adrian, someone who's lived through something hard and came out the other side. That's all any of us can hope for, he said. There's no dramatic final confrontation in this story. No moment where Tyler realizes the error of his ways and begs for forgiveness. No tearful reunion with Sophie where we acknowledge what we lost Real life doesn't work like that. Tyler probably still thinks he was justified, probably tells himself he was just being a smart businessman, making tough calls, doing what was necessary to succeed. Sophie probably remembers our relationship as a casualty of my obsession, not recognizing that my obsession was a symptom of Tyler's betrayal, not the cause of it. And I remember all of it: the friendship, the betrayal, the destruction, the revenge, the hollow victory, the long climb back to something resembling normalcy. But here's what I know now, what Tyler's betrayal ultimately taught me. You don't get to control other people's choices. You don't get to prevent betrayal by being good enough, loyal enough, trusting enough. Sometimes people will destroy you for reasons that have nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own broken morality. What you do control is how you respond, whether you let the betrayal make you bitter or whether you
Let it make you careful. Whether you seek revenge that consumes you or justice that restores balance. Whether you become a victim permanently or a survivor eventually. Tyler made his choices. Sophie made hers. And I made mine. I chose not to become him. Not to let his cruelty corrupt me into cruelty. Not to let his betrayal teach me that all people are untrustworthy, or that all partnerships are doomed, or that success requires sacrificing your humanity. I chose to believe that there are still honest people in the world, that integrity matters more than profit, that the work we do should help people, not just enrich ourselves. And I chose to build a life based on those beliefs, even though it's harder, less financially rewarding, more vulnerable to future betrayals. Because the alternative, Tyler's way, leads to prison cells and ruined reputations, and nights spent wondering if anyone ever really loved you, or if they were all just using you too. I still design medical devices sometimes, still feel that same spark I felt when I was 23, holding my first prototype, believing I could save lives with the right combination of engineering and care. Tyler didn't take that from me. He tried, but he failed. He took my company. He took my fiancée. He took years of my life and peace of mind, but he didn't take my purpose. He didn't take my ability to do good work for the right reasons. He didn't take the core of who I am. And in the end, maybe that's the real revenge. Not destroying him, though I did that too, but refusing to be destroyed myself. Tyler wanted to eliminate me as competition, as an obstacle, as a threat to his ambition. Instead, he created someone who understood exactly how to systematically dismantle everything he built. Someone who had the patience to wait, the intelligence to plan, and the moral clarity to know when to stop. He created his own destruction. I was just the instrument. They found Tyler's resignation.
letter in my old office last week. The paper had yellowed, the ink faded, but the words were still there. The same lies he'd told me 7 years ago, preserved like evidence in a crime scene. I burned it without reading past the first line. Because I don't need Tyler's lies anymore, don't need his explanations or his justifications or his version of events. I know what happened. I know what he did. I know what I did in response. And I know that I'm still here, still standing, still doing work that matters. And that's not the ending I wanted when I was 23, naively dreaming of changing the world with my best friend. But it's the ending I earned, the one I fought for, the one I chose. And some days, that's enough.